Well, here we are. This is our second edition of the emotion portion of summer prep. Last week, we talked about two specific things that we need to address when we're working through emotions and preparing our emotions for the next season. That was breathing and journaling. I'll touch on that in just a moment, just for a recap. But I want to share and get you interested in your interest peaked about tonight. Tonight is two things, one being words, the second being rest. And the words really, and we may do this, I need to pray through this and see where, just sort of get a feel for where everyone is at the end of our time together. I have a feeling we're going to spend next week's session all about words. Tonight we'll talk about using your words, the types of words we have. But again, let me just get a feel for it. I do believe that our words, they're underutilized, if I'll just leave it at that. There's so much power in our words. They're not necessarily underutilized as far as how much we use them. They might be underutilized in a healing and healthy sort of way. So for a quick recap, last week we discussed breathing and journaling. These are foundational for any amount of emotional healing, emotional wellness, dealing with anything that is unsettling or I don't know, anything that you just that's not serving you. I'll say that. When we're in a situation, we have two choices, whether to respond or react. Breathing helps us respond always. It gives us time to process. It causes our mind to be clear and think. This week, I always have a chance to practice what I preach, literally always. And I started to get into a discussion, a pretty heated discussion with my two daughters' horse trainer. And what's fun is that she has the same personality with me as I do. So if I'm having a heated discussion with her, it's just us like talking very excitedly and loudly at one another. Somebody else who has a more quiet personality might get a little freaked out. Like my two daughters, they went into the car and waited for us to stop talking. It wasn't a big deal. It was just, we were just, and then this, and then this. And we just kind of, and at one point I just walked away. She goes, "Are you mad?" I said, "I don't know. I need to stop for a second." So she followed me. I said, "Hold on, let me breathe." So we both were breathing. And then we could continue the conversation. And it was just acknowledging, like, hold on, I just need a second, because we're both getting to this point. We might begin to react. We're both passionate. She's Argentinian, so that should just tell you. She's very Latin, very, with her hands, and just like I am, though I'm not Argentinian. But there was a lot of emotion to that. And so when you get to the point where you start to feel your emotions rise, and the next thing that comes out your mouth may not serve either one of you, this is the time to breathe. So when you get into this situation, any type of situation, excuse me one moment. My apologies. Roman has not been with me in a few weeks, and now all of a sudden he's decided to lick the floor for everything. When you get in a situation that is a heated discussion, you'll want to pause and breathe. The second thing we shared about, and you guys know me by now, is journaling. Journaling when it's an option, when it's appropriate, but really making a habit every day of just journaling a few quick thoughts, things that are going on in your mind, bantering this really with yourself and the Lord, even just with yourself, saying, is this true? Is this fact? Is this just something I've made up? Is this a lie? And on, so that you can begin to start to process. The cool thing about journaling too is that if you keep your journal entries, you can go back and really see how far you've come. What's fun, again, the horse trainer and I, we were discussing, once we had a conversation with my daughter, and she was encouraging her. She said, "Selah, you have really come so far in 6 months riding horses." The hard thing about that is we don't have any video document. We don't have any journaling, writing it down. We just have day after day, week after week of writing. So it doesn't really necessarily look like she's improving, or in her mind, she's not too. Her trainer and I were like, oh my word, you're vastly different. The same thing goes with our emotions. If we're not keeping, not necessarily a detailed journal, just maybe a few things we thought January 1st, come March 1st, what are we thinking now? Come July 1st, you could see a progression like, wow, that thing didn't trigger me as much. Or I don't even realize, I can't even remember being upset about that thing. Or look at how I now think about this situation in my life. Journaling is such a stunning way to keep a record of your growth. Do you guys remember when we were kids? I don't know if people do this much anymore. I don't, because I don't necessarily like to mark up my walls. But when I was a kid, a lot of my friends and we had ticks on, hash marks on the wall, right? From when you were growing and you could see. And I know grandparents who pulled the baseboard, not the baseboard, whatever that thing's called, like the door jamb off when they moved, because they wanted to have that as a reminder of how much they've grown. We do this in the physical, we must do it in the emotional. Why is it, everyone, that we measure how much weight we've reduced, but we don't ever measure how much muscle strength we've gained in our minds and in our soul? I have a good friend who's a bodybuilder, and he's like, oh, I can bench, I don't know, some ridiculous amount. I'm like, I don't know, unless you ever need to lift a car off someone, I'm not sure what that value is, but for him, it's a good goal. And he measures that. And so I think, so how are we measuring our emotions? How strong are we in our emotional capacity? I say this often, and I'll just say it again and again, because I think it's really important. And I'll share, yesterday at our time together, this became even more apparent why I need to share this over and over. One of the gals, it was a phenomenal event, by the way. If you got to go, that it was just a really sweet time to gather together with Young Living family and really get back to basics. And one of the things they were sharing just a ton is about emotions and oils. And at one point, one of the gals said, I like this oil because it really lifts your spirit. And that grabbed my attention, because I think we're so prone to say, oh, this lifts my spirits, or that note that someone sent me lifted my spirit. But that's actually not true. We're a three-part being. We are a spirit, we have a soul, and we're in a body. And the reason why this is so important, and we'll talk about this in a little bit when we discuss our words, but understand that we are spirit beings. This is who we are. So for example, and like I say, we'll talk about this in a moment, but when we talk about, if we say something like, I am happy, or I am sad, like if we say that type of a thing, then we're saying that's what we are, but we're not that. Do you get the distinction? Your soul is something that you have, but your soul is your mind, will, and emotions. Your soul is your thinking. It's your affections. It's your intellect. And when we speak from that, it can be speaking something positive, or it can be speaking something negative, depending on how the soul is doing that way. So when we use our oils, remember, our spirit is already connected to God. We're a spirit being. It's where we came from. It's our soul that needs help. When we speak with our words, depending on the frequency, the soul feels it. The body tends to come along for the ride, and really the soul is an interface between the spirit and the body. For example, when we are more emotion eaters, just raise my hand, I'm totally telling on myself. I like to keep myself accountable by tattling on me, because that helps. Excuse me, just 1 minute. Roman is forever banned from the office, let the record show. In the event of someone who is an emotional eater, like I say myself, you're going through a rough time, your soul is hurting, your spirit doesn't give it a chance to talk, your soul needs to feel better. So the body's like, hey, I know what feels good. I like it when I release endorphins and feel good hormones from those Oreos or the ice cream or whatever. The spirit comes back and just, okay, fine, whenever y'all are done with this nonsense, we'll get to work. When your spirit is engaged and you're more spirit-led, as the word of God says, if you don't ascribe to that, just know that actually kind of doesn't matter. It's just a thing. It's actually science. You can break your body down into 3-part being through science. And something photography, I just lost the word. Probably Lisa, I'm guessing, or Kathy knows the word for it, where it's, anyhow, never mind. Some sort of photography that they can see the different parts. When that spirit is engaged, it can take over when it feels strong, and it can tell the soul, yes, thank you, Kathy. I knew you girls would know. Michelle too. Krillian, thank you. The spirit is able to say and be in charge, you're wanting this because of grief, sadness, frustration, whatever. Let's deal with it in a different way. We'll talk more about that as we go on, but I want to just put that in your mind so that you have time to think, sort of laying the foundation for understanding. We are a 3-part being. In order to have healthy emotions, healthy body, healthy spirit, you have to understand there's 3 parts to take care of. It's kind of like if you were to say, you see me in my car and you think that I'm a Honda minivan. I'm not. That's not who I am. It's just something that I drive. In the case of emotions, for tonight, addressing our words and rest is what I have on tap for us. Words are powerful tools to help us heal. Rest is an incredible weapon against everything that is an onslaught to our soul. So when we think about last week, we were breathing, we were pausing, journaling, if and when possible. Tonight, we're going to add 2 more things to our arsenal, the words and the rest. Remember, when we deal with something new, let's say emotional health, it's easy +1. So if you are just getting the hang of breathing, or journaling is like, I'm doing it once a week, no worries. Let this information wash over you. Take notes. This won't be the first time we talk about it, but what I want you guys to do is do what's easy, then add 1 more thing that might push you a little bit. So if breathing and journaling, it's like, okay, I'm getting a good hang of this, I'm working on it, then add the words. Add what we talk about tonight until that becomes easy. The first thing is the frequency of our words. All of us use Young Living. We all understand frequency to some extent. But did you know, and this is an audience participation, feel free to unmute or chat with me. Did you know that your words have a frequency? An actual tangible, yes, I see some of you guys nodding. Is there anybody who is surprised that different words have weight and frequency? The words that we use, right, Deb, it does make sense. So the words that we use can give off as much frequency and power as the best oil, the best frequency tool. It bears repeating. I know we've all, at least to some extent, everybody in here, we've talked a little bit about different tests that have been done. The Japanese scientist who spoke to the water, hid messages in water. The school study that was done with the two plants, one where it was bullied. Have you all seen that? Where they bullied a plant over here, then they spoke life to the plant over here, right? And we all know the plant shriveled up and died. The other one, thank you, Kathy Emoto, right? The other one that wasn't, that had the words of life, grew and thrived. Same thing with the water. You know, we could dive into that. We know this, but are we really utilizing this? The words that we speak every day, really, really grasp this. Take a lot of notes if you're not ready to implement words, if you're not on the easy plus one with our words. This is something that is so powerful. Kathy, I'm so glad you said that. My mom actually commented when they were talking about the Melissa Fields yesterday at the group. She says here, for those of you watching later, Gary sent workers home that showed up at the field that were in a bad mood. The Melissa field, excuse me. The Melissa plants are so sensitive to frequency, just your mood, that they would be sent home if they were in a negative mood space. That's powerful. Even if they didn't say a word, just your vibration that came off of you for being in a foul mood. We can alter the course of our emotional health just by our words. It's been said that if people are told a lie long enough and hard enough, they'll start to believe it, right? So if that works in the negative, it works in the positive. If your life, if you are in a circumstance that is unfavorable and not something that you enjoy, if you speak over and you declare goodness and mercy and joy and an expected end over your day, over your life, over everything, eventually you'll believe that and things will turn around. Yeah, that's a great example. I'll just share what Kathy says. We've all been around people that repel us because of their energy, right? Our words start in our head as thoughts. You know, sometimes I've heard people say, I probably said it myself, oh, that slipped out. I didn't mean to say that. Contrary to popular belief, our mouth is not, it is not uncontrollable. Even for a split second, it starts in our brain, starts as a thought.
No, it's our voice that's uncontrollable, Jen. We use our out loud voice when we shouldn't.
Our voice, yes, there you go. We all need to use our inner monologue just a little bit more. I agree. I 100% agree with that. Our voice is uncontrollable. We need to correct that. We need to care for that. But this goes back to, or I should say, excuse me, and goes back to pausing and breathing. When we pause and when we breathe, we are sure to say life-giving words to the person who we're speaking to ourselves. The frequency of our words matter. If we were sitting together, I love this, and I love this experiment example. I think I have one on the Weir Oil, not Weir Oil, that's what we used to call it. The Healing Haven. It's a video, I'll share it, and I might even put it on the YouTube channel. But where my daughter and I wrote down the word love and then the word fear, I think, either that or hate, and she didn't see, and we did just a quick muscle testing. And what you saw on the video is her arm was real strong when we muscle test, just a basic muscle test, when she held up the word love. When she held up the negative word, her arm just went weak. It was the wildest thing, and you could see, I mean, there was no, smoke and mirrors. It was just right there live. We did that. Just even holding a word that you don't even know what it says lowers your frequency. It causes your muscles to go weak. So imagine those cognitive words, the words that we know we're saying, come out of our mouth. We read it on the page, we write it down, what that does. and you can feel it in your body. Good practice to do is just repeat the word love or peace, shalom. I love the Hebrew word shalom. It really, and in its essence, it means nothing missing, nothing broken. You just repeat that over and over, and you can just feel it in your body, just well up. Your spirit gets a chance to talk. The soul feels great, and the body follows suit. The second thing about words and using our words, this is where we'll sit for a little bit, is many people don't know how to put words to what they're feeling. So consequently, we struggle with healing from those. Lisa, shalom at its core means nothing missing, nothing broken. And if somebody wishes you shalom, they're wishing you peace and prosperity and health and wealth in every area of your life. It's really the highest blessing someone can give you. And if you want to bless somebody else, saying shalom to them, whether they understand what it means or not, is such a gift. It's a true gift. Say that again, Lisa. Oh.
It's because it goes up.
Mm.
It goes up to the Father,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It goes up. So when you say shalom, I just didn't know that it meant nothing missing, nothing broken, but I knew that it was like the highest blessing that you could give somebody.
Yeah.
But I did, because I was told it goes up, it goes straight, because that's like Hebrew. And so that's the spirit speaks that way.
That's a good point. I love that you said that. Thinking about if we're a spirit being and use spiritual words like that. Yeah.
Goes up.
You're speaking from that spirit. That's beautiful. Thank you. When we have a struggle being able to address how we're feeling accurately, some of those emotions get stuck. And I only want to visit this just for a little bit because I don't want to get not stuck. I don't want to sit too long on negative emotions. And I don't want you guys to get the idea that we are sitting for a long time on our negative emotions. However, acknowledging it, understanding there's a problem here. This is a specific problem. Now I can appropriately address it and heal from it. So we say that emotions are rooted in two things, love and fear. In the case of negative emotions, they're all fear-based. But knowing that, it's like, okay, well, so this is probably a fear-based one. You know, perfect love casts out fear, and we want love, and we find ourselves at times grappling with, but how, what am I afraid of, this and that. So if we think about rather that fear is just an umbrella, love is an umbrella of all these other little emotions underneath. I could picture a mobile maybe, and then the emotions streaming down. We're then able to assess, okay, what is the actual specific pinpointed emotion? When we figure that through, what I like to do, this is just what I practice. If anybody else has something different, I would love to hear it. But one of the things that I do, if I'm feeling, let's say, if I have a feeling of helplessness, I like to think of the opposite. I'm capable, strong, powerful, those words. So then I ask myself, when did I start feeling this way? What occurred? See what comes up. Say out loud, I'm looking for ways to feel stronger, to find solutions, this and that. And I start to have this inner dialogue with myself, and that's where the journaling takes place. Because you have those thoughts in your head that tell you why this can't happen, why this is feeling impossible, and you can address it then. If we come with this umbrella, well, all emotions are love and fear. So if you're having a negative emotion, there's some fear there. It's so ambiguous in today's world. 2 years ago, there was this mantra, I'll say that came out, faith over fear, faith over fear. And some people who were saying have faith over fear really were having fear themselves because they were fearing that something negative would happen to disrupt their apple cart. So it was just this big jumble of, well, I have faith in what? What's your faith in? Your government? Mandates? So you start to have to ask really pointed questions. What are you fearing? The government mandate? I mean, it kind of goes both ways, right? Masks, yes, so many things. So I just got a little sweaty when you said mask. I'm like, wait, we don't have to do that anymore, right? Okay. Whew. That was terrible. Yes, their faith in masks, of course.
You know what, Jen? It used to, when I would see somebody with a mask on, it would make me a little bit angry. I mean, not explosive angry, but just like,
Sure.
take that darn thing off kind of angry, But now I immediately stop and pray for them. They are living in fear. They need prayer,
It's such a good
especially
point.
the little kids that are being forced to wear masks. You see daddy pushing the shopping cart with the little kid in the cart with the mask on. Pray, pray, pray for that baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said that, Kathy, because the studies are coming out now that, well, they were out, they're being released now, but that is so bad for their little lungs. So bad. I have aunts that are teachers, and the ramifications that they've seen from that in the classroom is negative. It's not positive, not at all. And learning to talk. Yes. Right. To be able to see people. That's, yeah, goodness. Now I'm going to write that down on my prayer list tonight, because that's now top of mind. When we have these negative emotions, and I love that you shared that about being, feeling angry, and your reason for angry might be different than mine, might be different than Sherry's in that situation or in another one. When I hear stories that people tell that put a rise in me, there's a certain type of anger that is justified and holy and good, and yet it's still a negative emotion, ladies. And we have to do something about it if we want to thrive in a healthy manner. I'll give you an example. For me, human trafficking is enough to put me literally over the edge. My kids do not dare bring up, I'm going to totally step on some toes. I know it. I'm just acknowledging it so that you know that I'm not being a complete tool about it. But when my children bring up Disney anymore, because growing up, I knew that Disney was the play. You went to Disneyland, and I knew that, kids get stolen from there. And just recently I started to learn a little bit more that it is a hotbed for human trafficking and child trafficking. I was just like, no Disney, no, blah, nothing. We're done. And they'll say something. I'm like, oh, you mean the human trafficking thing? They get so terrified when one of their friends brings up a movie. I'm like, oh, that movie? Well, and they're like, oh my God, here she goes. When I first learned, I was so angry because I felt like I had been lied to by an industry that was so sinister. If I held on to that anger and didn't do something with it appropriately, put it to Kathy's point, pray. And put energy into that, I would become a pretty hateful old prune. Because that can happen. When we start railing on things, injustice in the world, and we start talking about, well, they're evil and they're horrible people. Yeah, for sure. Not just Disney. There's so many of them. I mean, I grew up in California. It's the satanic worship capital of the United States. Come on. Anyway, I could go on about stories about, Santa Susanna Pass that we would just drive down on Halloween just to scare each other. That was stupid. I didn't always know Jesus, everyone. But we have to start putting those emotions to good use. Understand, right? We in the event of anger, as Kathy and I have shared, and I'm sure you guys have you all have anger stories, you have frustration stories, guilt stories, those types of stories. And yet we ask, okay, why? Why were we feeling angry? What can we do about it? What is the opposite of that? When we talk about something that's done to us personally, I was just sharing about injustices in the world and things, other people who are helpless. Nothing drives me more bananas than seeing animals and children who are helpless, who don't have a say. But there's things that happen to us that are also injustices that either we've spoken up or it just happens and you're working to deal with it and maybe you don't have a grid for it. If we don't have words, we might be prone to stuff it, not necessarily because we want to stuff it, but it can be challenging to acknowledge, what is this? What do I do with this? So I would love it if you would take just a minute and even write down 2 or 3 emotions that you're feeling that are negative, or that you have felt that maybe rise up a little bit here and there. Just write them down and begin to think through ways that you can find the opposite word of that. For example, if you have ever had frustration, if frustration is something that you're experiencing, frustration is a blocked goal, really in its essence. Somebody who feels frustration has a goal that's being blocked. So the question would be, what goal is being blocked? Why is that being blocked, causing this feeling? If it's fear, right? If we realize, okay, it's attached to fear. What are you afraid of this goal not being met? How is there a way to overcome this? Is there a way to work through? You see how this train of thought can go, and you start to get really intellectual about it. And after a while, it detaches from that, the intensity of the emotion, that negative frequency, and you can begin to start, you detach from that, and you can then attach to something positive. I talk to a lot of young living people, brand partners. And in the last couple of years, it's been a little tricky to work a business, and we've all had some ups and downs. And I was speaking to a woman the other day. She says, I don't know, it just feels really hard, and I'm just not into it. And, I don't know, my goals, yada, yada. And I said, well, at the end of the day, just ask yourself, is this something you feel you should be doing? And if so, then work around it. Maybe it's time to tap into a different people group. Right? So if you're thinking about business, sure, we have ups and downs, and there's things in the world that can cause it to stall out or stop. But if we understand that, you start asking a lot of good questions, we can work around it and find a new path. There's a huge variety of emotion words to choose from. I'll read a couple that I just went on Google. I'm like, what are some negative emotions that really people can be experiencing? You have anger, emptiness, frustration, inadequacy, helplessness, guilt, loneliness, resentment. We did a whole class on resentment. If you need a refresher on how to not have that, ridding yourself of resentment, head over to the YouTube channel and find that one. Failure is a big one. Failure requires a lot of forgiveness of yourself. I know from where I speak, I've had spent the better part of 2 years feeling like an enormous failure. I teach emotions. I let fear run me out of Massachusetts. That was silly. I'm not mad at myself anymore, but it took me a really long time. As you start to work through these emotions and recognize what they are, you can pull back. Thank you, Lisa. It was so good to hug you, by the way. I'm just going to say that right here in front of God and everybody. You can start to pull back and see what is truth, why this feeling is there. You can also then use an essential oil that will help deal with that. Our oils, speaking of frequency, our oils have frequency that resonate with the positive emotion, so opposite of that negative emotion. For example, resentment, the one that I know that is beautiful for me, that I love, is lemongrass. It's such an amazing oil. When I use lemongrass over maybe my liver, over my thyroid, it helps those body parts, those organs, to vibrate at a frequency of contentment, happiness, peace. We all know that joy has that same frequency as love, right? So using that over your heart, using it over your adrenals when you're working to rid your body of any fear. We can talk about what oils vibrate and resonate better with which emotions. You know, I always love what Gary would say, use what's in your pocket, use what you have on hand, because yes, any oil is going to lift your frequency just a little bit higher. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in the nuances of, wait, which is the highest frequency oil? And we end up, you know, stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Joy helps with grief too. You know, Lisa, that's actually something that I forget. Thank you for saying that. That's great. Yeah. So if you don't have joy, or you don't have, looking at what, like hope, or one of those types of oils, if you have lemon, use that. Use that, joy over the heart, 100%. I would say work to maybe get those specific oils, because they really do come in handy, especially if you start to do more of a deep dive into emotions and healing your emotions. I'll share this story with you and then we'll move on, because I think it's really powerful. I didn't share it yesterday at the event because I'm not a huge fan of crying in public, really and truly. It's not my favorite. In fact, I couldn't, there's fewer things that I like less. So anyway, they were asking for testimonies about certain oils, and I have, to me, the most amazing testimony about roots and wings. And so I went and told the corporate people, because I thought, you guys just need to know, you know, how grateful we are, and really this, you guys know, we wouldn't have these if it weren't for Gary's journaling. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. But to say that I had lost hope in my business and my chutzpah, as it were, in doing Young Living, and anything worthy of anything, is an understatement. I didn't know how to get it back. My desk was a disaster for the better part of this last year, just grappling it. I don't know. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with myself right now. Roots and Wings came out. I ordered the set and I smelled it and I thought, okay, this is interesting. I started feeling like I did when I used Trauma Life for the first time, where it kind of gave me that there was hope at the end of a tunnel. Using Roots, it's on my desk every day. I breathe it in, put it over my heart, just over my mind, and just let the Lord just wash it over my brain. I started, and I didn't realize it was the oil. It's silly me. What are we on? 2022, like 12 years later, I'm so surprised that they work. Is anybody else like that? I have now a desk full of ideas. I'm excited about my business again. I'm excited about coaching. I'm just excited about life. And rewatching Convention made me realize that sometimes you have to go back to roots. And even tonight, as I applied Wings before we got started, it just reminds me of soaring and teaching the things that I know to teach. It just gave me that voice back, that power back. And I wanted to share that with you guys, because few of you know just the deep darkness that I've been in the last 11 months. It's pitiful for me. And it's tricky when you work with people. I sometimes think, I'm gonna go work at Target, because then I can be like, do you want paper or plastic? Are you gonna use your Target card? Like, it could be very robotic and I didn't have to get it, but that would not be me, because then I would be talking about their emotions. And by the time I bagged up their 20th bag, we'd all be crying together. So that wasn't my job. Find your oil that does that for you. Whatever emotion that you are working to release, and whatever emotion, to quote Sherry, that you are trying to bind onto your spirit, soul, and body, use that oil. For me, it was Roots and Wings. It may be that for you. It may be joy. I don't know what it is for you, but play around with your oils. Use what you have. I wanted to share too, as we speak out these emotions and we start to recognize, I feel this way. Remember, You are not overwhelmed. You only feel overwhelmed. This is why I shared we are a spirit, we have a soul, we're in a body. Because our feelings come from the soul. It's our mind, will, emotions, and affections. It's something that we're experiencing. It's not what we are. We might be experiencing overwhelming times and circumstances. That's not who we are. When we consider our words and how weighty they can be, good and bad, we begin to realize that when we say I am something, is a constant state of being. Right? We've talked about this in different emotion classes, saying I am hungry. It's like, oh, so you're constantly hungry. Well, no wonder those pants are a little snuggly. You know, in every language as we study, my kids and I were studying Spanish, some are doing Italian, some are doing French. It's always, I have hunger. I have a need to sleep. I have tired, right? In English, it's I am this. We're always saying we are something, and we forget I am not sleepy. That is not who I am. I'm not one of the 7 dwarfs. I feel tired, or I feel more awake. So as you're diagnosing your feelings, remember to say, I feel this, or I have this. I am is used for something that you want to be all the time. All the time. I am full of joy. Heck yes. That is a fruit of the spirit. It's a byproduct of a positive thing with the spirit. Say you're overwhelmed. Unless you're literally being taken out by a tsunami on some island, you might be in an overwhelming circumstance, but saying that you feel this way, or the circumstance feels overwhelming, all of a sudden your body feels different. The last thing I want to share this evening is about rest. A few years ago, Mark and I decided to take a Sabbath. This is not a discussion about whether everyone should Sabbath. This is just the idea that this came across our desk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I never take a day off. I love working. I've been working since I was 15. It's super fun for me. My body would say otherwise, right? I'm sure some of you work a lot, and then all of a sudden you are out for the count and you're in bed with a cough or something, or just not feeling right. It's your body saying you need to rest. It's not only biblical, it's science shows that we need a rest. That's why we sleep. When we sleep, our bodies rejuvenate itself. If you study Chinese medicine, there's a chart. It'll show you the different times of the evening, or night and morning, where each organ starts to heal itself. It goes into repair. If you're constantly going, your organs don't get a chance to rest. Resting is a powerful way to heal emotionally, not necessarily like taking a nap or sleeping longer, but a mental rest. Creating space for yourself to journal, maybe take a slower walk, listening to soft, high frequency music. Have you all heard John Tussey or John Tussey's music? It's on iTunes. He might even be on YouTube, but he specifically has music that is high frequency, and he does it to different body parts, or not body parts, excuse me, frequencies of different organs. So when you listen to it, it's resonating, your body is resonating with those frequencies. It's really cool. There's a ton of high frequency music that you can listen to, but just having that in there is a form of rest. That's true, Kathy, all day. Your body does regenerate all day long. I'm going to put it in the chat. It's John, and then Tussey, I believe. He's got a lot of healing music. And like I say, there's a ton out there. When we take a day of rest, a season of rest, just a time to pull away, you get more creative. Your mind has a chance to breathe, literally. Some of us tend to go, go, go because it keeps us from thinking of the thing in our life that we actually need to deal with. So carving out a rest period gently forces you to walk through those things that are needing addressing. And again, this is for everybody. For me, taking a nice long walk is very restful, especially if I make myself do it slowly. It's a little tricky with long legs. Sitting down in the woods, trees around, sitting at the lake, at the beach, just for me, being with nature is so restful. Maybe for you, it's sitting in your home, again, listening to some soft music. When I go visit my mom, brushing her horses, I go out there now all the time and brush the horses. That's restful for me. Rest isn't necessarily ceasing activity. It's more of it's an attitude, it's an intention. But ladies, when we are spending so much time rushing around and driving in our car, that's not restful because our mind is so engaged and on what's going on. If we're using our time of rest to go marketing, to catch up on things that need to get done, again, this is not a restful space. You'll notice that Jesus did most of his miracles on Sabbath. Have you guys ever noticed that? He didn't do anything just for happenstance. It's very pointed and on purpose. Healing happens when we rest. Healing happens when we rest. And for a little Hebrew lesson, the word Sabbath or Shabbat, again, just like Shalom, when it's broken down letter by letter, it means to return to the covenant of God. To return to that mentality of no longer being a slave, but being a child of God, being so tenderly cared for by him. Healing happens when we pause and rest. I love our Nitro. I love our Super Bee, but I get into a habit of ordering extra boxes of Nitro because I'm like, well, I'm so busy. I need to keep going. And it's like, okay, hold on. That's actually, I don't think what Gary had in mind. So that we can go more and do more. No. Nitro, I started using it so that I could pull my feet out of the mud when I was running or when I was working out. It just does that for me. But I started using it as a tool to stop rest. As you take a look at your supplements and what you're doing with your daily regime and the oils that you might use, be aware of why you're using each one. Is it to get more done in the day? Is it to be more productive? That's wonderful if you also have time carved out to rest. But if you're not and you're pushing, your body will rebel against you. And it will say, we're done. We're going to make you rest now. And then you're in a mode of physical healing and mental healing. Rest is a weapon against all things that keep us emotionally bound up. It's a weapon because as humans, we're natural doers. Telling ourselves no and stopping reminds the body it's not in charge, but your spirit is. This is a time where your spirit needs refreshing and needs time to restore. So take care when you are going through your day, when you're planning your week, and really assess, is this something I need to say no to? Need as in, this is top priority. Is there anything else in your day that you can put on hold so that you can get much needed rest? And make a habit of resting every day, not just once a week. We actually, for our family, since Marcus passed, we still do our once a week Sabbath, but it's more family day. So we do stuff together because it's the only day my big kids are off. So at times it can be not restful. So make it a point to take extra time in the morning or in the evening just to unwind, to let my mind just heal, have some good frequency music. That's the time to put on a lot of oils. So much so that you might smell me coming a few feet away. I stopped apologizing, like it's fine. Some of y'all still have your masks on, so it doesn't matter. Not you guys, but you know, other people. But take that time. And you, if you know, I like to go, okay, that's it, I'm doing an hour a day. It's just like we talked about before, easy +1. If you tend to go every minute of the day, or your brain does, set a timer for 15 minutes. Sit down, put the music on, breathe in your oils, practice your breathing. Within a week, I can assure you, your heart rate will slow. Your body will feel more at rest. You'll crave that time. Does anybody have any questions for me before we stop the recording, or comments that you want to share? No. Okay.